Discover the incredible twist: how a text for baby formula transformed a poor mom's life forever. Sarah sat on the edge of her worn-out couch, the hum of the aging fridge mingling with the distant sound of Lily's giggles. Yet today, laughter felt like a distant echo. The pantry shelves were bare. Only a few jars of baby food and a half-empty canister of formula remained. With 2 minimum wage jobs slipping through her fingers like sand, Sarah's heart raced with the relentless anxiety that enveloped her. Her mind spun as she mentally counted the days until her next paycheck. It wasn't enough. Nothing was ever enough. Each hour Sarah spent on the clock chipped away at her energy, leaving her in a constant state of exhaustion and helplessness. The pressure of keeping a roof over their heads gripped her chest tight. What if she couldn't find another job? How long could they survive like this? The questions were suffocating, like a weight pressing down on her. Just when she thought things couldn't get worse, she received the call that the diner she worked at had closed for good. Staring blankly at the wall, her heart plummeted deeper into despair. Panic seeped into her thoughts. What would happen to Lily? How would she afford the things her daughter needed? Would she become one of those mothers who couldn't provide for her child? The fear clawed at her, even as her little girl's laughter reminded her of the joy that still flickered in their lives. With trembling hands, Sarah reached for her phone, contemplating the local parenting group on social media. A lifeline, perhaps. Taking a breath to steady her nerves, she typed out her message, pouring her heart into each word. I need baby formula. Things are tough, and I don't know what to do. She hesitated for a moment before pressing send, a rush of desperation followed by dread. What would they think of her? Before she could stew in her vulnerability, powerful hope surged through her as responses began to flood in. I can drop some off. Let me connect you with resources. The kindness of strangers lit a flicker of warmth in her chest. But that flicker was extinguished by an icy encounter just days later. While grocery shopping, Sarah found herself face to face with Emily, the wealthy woman from down the road who often wore judgment like a second skin. Why can't you just take responsibility for your life? Emily scoffed, her tone sharp and cutting. Sarah's stomach twisted. How could someone so seemingly perfect cast her struggles into the light of scorn? Doubt invaded her mind, laying waste to the little confidence she had built. Each word from Emily was like a bolt, jarring her with the guilt of perceived failure, the suffocating weight of shame hardening her resolve. But what was she going to do? Another failure. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As her world felt like it was teetering on the brink, Sarah's best friend, someone she had confided in about the stress of her situation, horrifically betrayed her. News spread through the community like wildfire, exposing her struggles for all to see. The humiliation gnawed at her, the sting of judgment pierced her heart. Standing before the mirror that reflected her weary visage, Sarah was at a crossroads. Hide away in shame, or rise up and confront the contempt she faced. Hatred coursed through her veins, igniting a fire in her to not only fight for herself, but for families like hers that carried the same burdens. The shadows of the judgment loomed, and the struggle to reclaim her dignity was only just beginning. Would she stand tall against adversity, or succumb to the weight of her shattered trust? The uncertainty loomed, larger than ever, a storm brewing on the horizon. Sarah took a deep breath, steadying her quaking resolve. Staring at her reflection, the woman's face revealed the weight she carried. Hollow eyes and a pallid complexion marked her endless nights of worry and fear. This was not just about the formula, or the weight of judgment. It was about her identity. The next morning, dawn broke with a fresh intensity, illuminating the worn corners of her living room. It's time to act, she thought, needing to reclaim a semblance of control amidst chaos. Fueled by frustration, determination, and unyielding love for Lily, Sarah opened her laptop. She stared blankly at the screen until she closed her eyes and thought of what she wanted: security, respect, and a future. With renewed resolve, she logged onto a systems needs application for local assistance and scoured the resources available to her. She wasn't accustomed to seeking help. Pride had often kept her propped up like a fragile antenna, but now it felt like a necessary step. As her fingers clicked away, a sense of empowerment began to fill the spaces previously occupied by despair. Hours turned into a flurry of activity, compiling a list of potential job openings she hadn't previously pursued, thinking them too far-fetched for someone with her background. But desperation gives birth to creativity, and Sarah found herself reevaluating everything, even her limited qualifications. In fact, she remembered a skill tucked away from her distant past: crafting. She had always been good at making jewelry, learning the delicate process from her grandmother. That evening, Sarah gathered her supplies: beads, wires, and tools, each one tangible proof of her hidden talent. She hadn't thought of herself as an artist in years, buried beneath layers of responsibility and shame. As she worked, she felt a flickering warmth reignite within her. Each bead, threaded and twisted, felt like reclaiming a piece of her identity. Creation brought clarity. Before long, the pieces were ready. They sparkled on her table like tiny stars waiting to shine. What if she could sell these? It was a leap of faith, but the thought coursed through her mind persistently, a steady heartbeat guiding her forward. She decided to establish an online store, tapping into the mother groups she'd communicated with. They'd seen her struggle. Perhaps they'd appreciate her artistry as well. The nights turned into weeks, as Sarah transformed her evenings into hours of crafting and marketing. Sharing her creations online, she found warmth from the community that once judged her, realizing they were also in search of connection and authenticity. Slowly, small orders began to trickle in. Each notification brought a mix of excitement and disbelief. Was this truly happening? Despite these small successes, there were still moments when doubt crept in, whispering past failures into her ear. Why would anyone buy from her? Was she good enough? These were questions she needed to face head on. One blustery afternoon, as she completed an order, a notification dinged on her phone, a message from Emily, brazenly indicating she'd heard about Sarah's online business. Thought you'd give this a try. So it turns out you didn't have to face this alone, it read, laced with a disingenuous veneer of concern. Sarah's fingers hovered over the screen. She could respond with scorn, cloaked in the issues of her defeat and discomfort, but instead, she typed out a simple truth. Thank you for your concern. I found something I love. The tension between her old self and the emerging one swelled as she prepared for a live sale on social media, her moment to assert her newfound identity. With every assertion made, every piece sold, she felt like she was reclaiming not just her financial stability, but her dignity. The day approached, and with it, an exhale of impending anxiety. Performing in front of an audience would test her like never before. Could she really withstand Emily's judgment now that she was stepping into the spotlight? As she mulled over the potential outcome, she realized it wasn't just a sales pitch, it was a declaration of resilience, of hope, of rising above the dark cloud of judgment that had once laid claim to her life. Would she have the courage to step into that moment, or would doubt snatch it away? With the event looming, the feeling of empowerment surged through her veins. Intertwined with uncertainty, a potent cocktail of determination, ready to set her on a new trajectory. This was not merely about business. It was about confrontation. The moment had come for Sarah to face more than judgment. It was time to confront herself. Would she emerge with pride or retreat into shadows long familiar? The evening sky darkened, and as she lay restless, the weight of her choices and the potential of her future loomed larger than ever. What secrets lay ahead, hidden in the folds of unpredictability? The moment Sarah stepped into the glow of her laptop, the world around her hazed into insignificance. Only the camera lens stood between her and a multitude of unseen faces, each with their expectations and judgments. Anxiety nudged at the edges of her confidence, a whisper taunting her resolve. You think you're worth their attention? Beneath it all, she reminded herself she was not just a mother struggling, but a woman with talent. A creator worthy of being seen. As the clock ticked closer to her live sale, she meticulously arranged her handcrafted jewelry, each piece a testament to her journey from despair to purpose. The dazzling colors and intricate designs were no longer mere accessories but symbols of her reclaimed identity, a narrative woven into every bead. This was her moment to tell her story. The countdown began, and Sarah's heart raced. She checked the settings on her phone, adjusted the camera angle, and ensured the lighting highlighted her creations just right. Just as she took a deep breath, the notification came alive. Her followers started logging on, their familiar usernames lighting up the screen. Encouraged, she straightened herself, shedding layers of doubt like a snake molting its skin. "Hi everyone, welcome to my first live sale." Her voice trembled slightly, yet it cut through the apprehension, piercing the veil of fear that had threatened to smother her. As she introduced herself, she felt the enthusiasm of their support rising like a wave, urging her to write it. Bringing her creations closer to the camera, she showcased each piece, their glimmering surfaces reflecting both her artistry and her journey. But as she spoke, the specter of Emily's message loomed in her mind, a dissonant note amidst the symphony of acceptance she was striving to create. "Who are you really, Sarah?" the inner voice jeered. "Are you really enough?" She flinched but pressed on, each word growing firmer. Her story was now an affirmation, woven into the fabric of her craft. The first sale was a breakthrough, sending rushes of exhilaration through her. One after another, orders began to fly in, each confirmation of payment, a jolt of validation. With each piece sold, she marked her territory on a battleground, reclaiming her self-worth. The validation she craved transformed into a palpable energy, and for the first time in years, she felt herself basking in triumph rather than hiding from criticism. As the hours slipped by, the comment section brimmed with encouragement. "Your jewelry is beautiful. I can feel your passion." The authentic connection with her audience was exhilarating. They saw her not just the products on display, but the woman beneath, fighting to rise. Each compliment fortified her spirit, further igniting the ember of purpose within. Yet, despite the overwhelming positivity, she felt an undercurrent of fear gnawing at her, the fear of returning to her former self, the vulnerable woman drowning in disappointment. "What happens if I fail again?" The thought pierced her excitement. What if this moment of success was ephemeral, a phantom she couldn't capture? After the sale ended, Sarah sank into the couch, exhilarated but exhausted. Her heart raced not just from the thrill, but in grappling with the fluctuating dynamics of success and fear. She reveled in her accomplishments. Yet the looming question clawed back at her: was this the start of something sustainable? Or would life plunge her back into the depths she'd only just begun to escape? A notification chimed again, breaking her trance. It was a message from one of her new customers, thanking her for her artistry, expressing how her pieces made them feel empowered. Those words cut straight through her hesitation, but they also awakened a new uncertainty. What is the price of putting myself out there? This wasn't merely selling jewelry. This was an audacious step into a world she had previously shunned. Time rolled forward, each day filled with orders, emails, and a newfound optimism, but the specter of what was yet to come lingered. Was she entirely free from the chains of her past? The comfort of solitude shifted when Sarah stumbled upon a flyer for a local arts and crafts fair. It felt inviting yet daunting, a chance to bridge her online success to the tangible world, to connect face to face. The conflict brewed within. Should she step beyond the safety of her screen into unknown territory, risking exposure to the sneers of those from her past? As she contemplated the decision, adrenaline coursed through her veins, intertwining excitement with terror. The opportunity lay before her, a path diverging from the comfort of her solitude and calling for tremendous courage. It wasn't just about selling her craft. It was about declaring to the world that she existed not as a shadow of doubt but as a radiant force of resilience. But would she dare to take that leap? The moment arrived for Sarah to confront the ultimate test of her growth, the true measure of her newfound identity. Would she stand firm against the judgment of others and claim her place in the realm of creativity? Or would she retreat back into obscurity? The decision loomed heavy in Sarah's mind, a tension between safety and the call to emerge into the world she had found so daunting for years. The shimmering flyer felt more like a binding contract than an invitation. It represented not just an opportunity but a reckoning. As she held it in her hands, her mind spiraled into possibilities. The burst of excitement from showing her creations in person, the warm smiles of connection, and the risk of vulnerability that provoked sweaty palms and doubt. She'd been so good at masking herself beneath layers of self-imposed restrictions and fear. But now, the path was wide open, and she felt a sense of urgency pushing her forward. Where others might have seen a mundane craft fair, she saw an arena for growth, a battleground for her self-affirmation. Each tick of the clock was a reminder that she only had days to decide. Sarah stood up, the cool air brushing across her skin, invigorating yet frightening. She glanced around her living room, filled with remnants of her past. The cluttered table held her latest designs, each a physical manifestation of her reclamation, but they seemed to plead for her to act. The items waited for an audience, for validation that transcended the sterile glow of the screen and transformed into physical laughter, acknowledgement, and connection. Moments later, with knees weak from both determination and anxiety, she opened her laptop and created a post on her social media pages. "I'll be at the Arts and Crafts Fair next weekend, come find me." She hit post before her thoughts could drown her in alternatives or hesitation. With that single action, she shattered a weight that had tethered her to uncertainty. Yet, exhilaration was quickly chased down by a wave of fresh self. Was she truly prepared for this reality, or was she setting herself up for disappointment? The if-only thoughts crawled back into her mind. What if people don't like what they see? What if they mock her creations? But the resonating voices of customers offered a golden counterpoint. "You inspire me," they had said. Their praises ignited a flicker of resolve inside her. She wasn't just showcasing her jewelry. She was sharing her journey, and there was power in that. This was greater than her fear. It was a chance to connect on a deeper level, to let others see the woman behind the products. Later in the evening, in the quiet of her home, Sarah sat scrolling through her messages, feeling the swell of encouragement wash over her like a warm embrace. Reviews flooded in, praising not just her craft but her spirit, her tenacity. Through the soft glow of her screen, she could almost feel their admiration buffering her against impending fears. They had taken notice. They were rooting for her. Yet, lurking beneath the surface was that familiar whisper, "What if this isn't enough?" It nudged relentlessly, taunting her resolve. The weight of the local fair transformed her self-exploration into a public spectacle. Exposure would mean one more chance for failure, one more opportunity to confront the shadows of her past. The night before the fair arrived, heavy with anticipation, Sarah finding herself crafting her own armor jewelry, organized with love into neat displays, and a checklist for every possible detail she could control, cards with her social media handles, price tags made with care, and beautiful floral wraps to elevate the presentation. But as the preparation unfolded into the early morning light, she could not shake the gnawing feeling in the pit of her stomach. Would it all be worth it? Or would this be where the walls would close in again? In the morning, decked out in her finest attire, Sarah stood before the mirror. As she combed through her hair, she whispered to her reflection to quell the rising tide of insecurity. "You are here. You are worthy," she reminded herself, though it felt as if she were convincing a stranger. Stepping out, Sarah could almost hear her heartbeat echo in her ears, each thump a reminder of the choice she had made to embrace this leap into the unknown. This crossroads between fear and aspiration. Would she face the crowd, or would she run back to the safety of her own solitude? As she approached the venue, the morning sun breaking through the clouds, illuminating the path she had chosen, Sarah breathed in deeply. One step forward, and she would confront not just her fears but also her sense of self. Just then, an unexpected vibration interrupted her thoughts, a message flashing on her phone from Emily. "I heard you'll be at the fair. Just wanted to wish you luck. Looking forward to seeing your new pieces." Suddenly, the journey she had undertaken felt more than personal. It was public, challenged, yet undeniably triumphant regardless of outcomes. But what would her response to Emily reveal about her own strength? In that moment, standing at the threshold of the fair, with raw vulnerability suffusing her heart and mind, Sarah knew she had to decide would she respond with confidence, or with the weight of the past. The real contest was about to unfold, and while she was ready to step ahead, the effect of that message lingered, urging questions about all she had fought against. As Sarah stood outside the venue, heart racing and palms clammy, She felt the very air pulse with the chatter of voices, laughter, and the occasional clink of metal jewelry being admired. It was an electric mix of excitement and dread, a palpable tension that felt as if it could swallow her whole. With another deep breath, she turned her focus inward, grappling with the duality of her emotions. This day could be a breakthrough or a complete collapse, all hinging on her readiness to confront her past. Was it bravery driving her forward, or was it desperation cloaked in the guise of ambition? The whisper of that doubt, the one that reminded her of every misstep and criticism she'd ever faced, felt stronger than ever today. But lingering behind it were the supportive echoes of her friends, the memories of them championing her through thick and thin. Was it possible that they saw something in her that she could not? She decided to respond to Emily, her fingers flying over the screen as she typed, "Thank you so much, Emily. I can't wait for you to see my new pieces. Your support means everything." Hitting send unleashed an unexpected tide of determination within her. It felt like a grounding moment, a reminder that she had allies in this endeavor, making the thought of public scrutiny slightly easier to bear. With renewed resolve, she took cautious steps toward her booth, her carefully arranged jewelry glinting temptingly under the sunlight. The moment she crossed the threshold into the fair, sounds and sights enveloped her. Vendors called out to potential customers, families wandered hand in hand, and artists showcased the fruits of their labor with pride. Each face held a story, a journey much like hers, and for a brief glorious instant, she felt connected to them all. Sarah approached her booth and was immediately struck by the array of vibrant colors and shimmering surfaces that surrounded her. As she set her bags down, an influx of doubt rushed back. What if her pieces blended in with all the others? What if nobody looked her way? Mental scenarios spiraled, each more daunting than the last. But she could not afford to retreat, not now. So, she took a deep breath, summoned her courage, and arranged her items with care. The earrings sparkled, the necklaces hung gracefully, and the bracelets beckoned to be tried on. An early bird customer approached, and Sarah felt her heart leap. "Hi, welcome. Feel free to look around," she said, forcing a smile. The woman eyed Sarah's designs, a mix of intrigue and apprehension etching her features. "Do you make these yourself?" "Yes. Each piece is crafted by hand here in my home studio," Sarah replied, her voice steadying as she spoke about her passion. With every word, she felt a connection grow, however tenuous. As the conversation flowed, Sarah began to realize that it wasn't just about selling her jewelry. It was about sharing who she was, the hands that made each piece, and the dreams that propelled her creativity. Each story infused her work with life, transforming it from mere product to a tangible piece of her journey. Other customers began to gather, her booth drawing attention, compliments pouring in. The sheer positivity enveloped her. Yet amidst the cheers, her mind flitted back to doubts she'd thought she had buried. What if they weren't being genuine? What if they were secretly laughing at her? She had always maneuvered through life, deflecting any attention from her passions to avoid the risk of criticism. But now, standing amid her creations, that self-doubt surfaced anew. If she allowed herself to embrace this moment, acknowledge her worth, what might unfold? Was she willing to open herself to not just admiration, but to potential disappointment? As more customers filtered through, Sarah felt the familiar tug of uncertainty, but also a burgeoning resolve. The whispers of her critics faded away, overshadowed by laughter and excitement. This was a test of her resilience, her ability to go beyond the confines of her past, and embrace the woman she was becoming. A potential sale settled in her mind, a catalyst that could spark a broader commitment to embracing her journey. But just then, she caught a glimpse of someone familiar in the crowd, a figure she hadn't seen in years. Could this unexpected encounter unravel all the progress she felt she'd made? Her heart raced anew, buzzing with questions. This was about more than mere jewelry. It was about confronting the entirety of her past, a reckoning that had arrived at her doorstep. What would happen next? As the figure approached, Sarah's heart pounded like a war drum, drowning out the vibrant sound of the fair. She squinted, trying to confirm the familiar face that had suddenly intruded on her careful bubble of newfound confidence. It was Jake, her old high school classmate, the one who had always pretended he was above her in the social pecking order. the one whose laughter had often turned into whispers, filled with derision whenever she stepped forward to share her aspirations. What was he doing here? The sudden rush of old insecurities threatened to wash over her, dragging her under like a riptide. She needed to remain composed, yet she felt adrift on a sea of anxiety. Could he see through her carefully curated facade? Did he recognize the flaws she desperately tried to hide? With a quick adjustment of her stance, she forced her uncertainty down, focusing instead on the gathering crowd. They were watching her, filled with eagerness and curiosity. Would they feel the shift in her energy? More importantly, would Jake? "Sarah, is that you?" he called out, his voice cutting through the din. She took a deep breath and turned to face him, the mask of professionalism plastered across her face. "Yes, Jake, it's been a while." His expression was unreadable as he glanced over her booth. "You make jewelry now?" Pride bubbled up in her chest, daring to pierce through her trepidation. "Yes, each piece is unique, handmade. There's a story behind everything." For a moment the air was charged with unspoken tension. Did he genuinely care? Or was he simply here to judge? The fear nudged at her resolve, but she pushed it back, forcing her thoughts to confront the essence of who she was beyond the judgments of others. "Can I check some out?" he asked, the corner of his mouth quirking into a weak smile. "Of course. Feel free," Sarah replied, waving a hand toward the display. The action was almost automatic, her practiced hospitality taking over. Yet, as he picked up a bracelet, looking closely, Sarah felt a crack in her armor. The doubts infiltrated her mind again. What if he didn't like them? What if he dismissed her passion as child's play? With each passing moment, she became increasingly aware of how foolish it was to give him so much power over her emotions. Yet, a flicker of embarrassment ignited within her. "I love the colors you chose here, the way they contrast," he said, breaking through her spiraling thoughts. His voice held a note of sincerity, not the mockery she had anticipated. "Thank you," she managed, surprised at her own restraints. Her nervousness shifted. She was served a fork in the road. Could she truly allow herself to be present in this moment, unguarded? Jake continued to examine her pieces, clearly taken with a few of them, which slowly softened her initial apprehension. "It must have taken a lot of courage to put yourself out here. I admire that." His words pierced through the haze of twisted memories. Here was someone she had once believed would never see her potential, now complimenting her pursuit. Was it possible that he had seen her journey unfold all along? The realization sent a jolt through her, sparking a realization that it didn't matter what he thought. This was her journey, her craft, her voice that mattered. The self-doubt clanged in protest against the steady pulse of each heartbeat that reminded her of the strength she had cultivated. As more customers began to engage, Sarah immersed herself in the flow once more. Each exchange fortified her resolve, punctuating her efforts with validation. Still, she couldn't shake Jake's presence, occasionally catching him out of the corner of her eye, weighing her evolving sense of self against the backdrop of their shared past. Was it too easy to let nostalgia overshadow her achievements? Or could she forge a new narrative, not just for herself, but for people like Jake who may have underestimated her? Then, just as she began to feel solid ground beneath her, a loud crash erupted from the vendor next door, sending a visible wave of panic across the fair. The crowd surged, faces filled with shock, and Sarah's focus snapped back into the chaos unfolding before her. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with a new realization. Would she be able to keep her footing in the face of this unexpected upheaval? This wasn't just about her artistry but also her ability to navigate unforeseen challenges head-on. What could this moment teach her about resilience? As she adjusted to the shifting environment, Sarah felt the stirrings of a profound revelation. The battle within her had taken a new turn. The reckoning she had felt was morphing, evolving into a test of the strength she had built. But what lay ahead? Would she rise to the occasion, or would the weight of expectation drag her back into the shadows? The noise from the fair abruptly transformed into a cacophony of alarm and confusion, forcing Sarah's mind into overdrive. The vendor next door had toppled, their setup tables and displays scattered. A cluster of shocked faces huddled amidst the chaos. Instinctively Sarah straightened her back and set her jaw. The turmoil surrounding her demanded attention, yet she needed to remain grounded in her purpose. Jake lingered at the edge of her booth, glancing between the wreckage and her pieces, his earlier camaraderie fading with the tension in the air. Could she lean into her newfound strength and be a pillar for herself, even if that meant stepping away from her booth? She wrestled with the thought, running her fingers over the smooth surfaces of her jewelry, grounding herself in the textures, the raw materials that had emerged from her hands. As uncertainty washed over her like a wave, a small voice inside whispered, "This is an opportunity. An opportunity to show not only her resilience but also to help others." With a deep breath that filled her lungs like fresh air, she made a choice. She wouldn't hide behind fear or the judgment of what others thought. This was her moment to demonstrate her growth, to confront the unpredictable nature of life head. "Jake," she said, her tone cutting through her wavering anxiety. "Can you help me with something?" He looked surprised, as though she had unexpectedly thrust the spotlight back onto him. "Sure, what do you need?" "Let's go see if we can help them," she gestured toward the vendor. "I think we could assist with cleaning up, maybe even help them salvage some pieces." His brow furrowed momentarily, caught off guard by her readiness to engage. But then he nodded, and Sarah felt a palpable shift within herself. In that instant, she harnessed the confidence simmering just beneath the surface, pushing aside the self-doubts that whispered she should stay contained within her bubble. Together, they navigated through the crowd, the chaos transforming into a shared mission. With each step toward the fallen tables, Sarah felt a new perspective bloom in her mind. Every piece of jewelry she had crafted was infused with intention, and this disarray presented another opportunity to channel that energy into something bigger than herself. Helping this vendor wasn't just an act. It was a material representation of her commitment to growth, to resilience, and to solidarity. As they reached the disheveled vendor, an elderly woman who seemed utterly overwhelmed, Sarah felt something click into place. "Let us help you," she said, her voice steady and sure. Together with Jake, they began lifting crates and gathering scattered items, a small team forging through the remnants of panic. With every restored item she touched, a wave of clarity surged through her. She was capable of much more than crafting jewelry. She was capable of fostering connections, of offering strength. Her pulse steadied as the chaotic outer world became a form of clarity, revealing the myriad ways she could still impact lives, including her own. As the vendor expressed her heartfelt gratitude, Sarah felt a pride swell in her chest that overshadowed any remnants of doubt. In stepping away from her booth, she had discovered a new facet of her character. Perhaps this, too, was a part of her journey toward empowerment. As the cleanup progressed, Jake edged closer, seemingly intrigued by this new dynamic. "You really are different, Sarah," he remarked, a hint of respect threading through his voice. The possibility that he, too, was beginning to see her transformation sparked a tingle of excitement within her. But just as elation began to flood her senses, a piercing cry shattered the moment the vendor's knickknacks were barely secured when another loud crash echoed, and a second stall collapsed in a fresh wave of turmoil. Sarah's heartbeat quickened again. What would this next twist hold? Would she channel her resilience once more, or was this a sign that she was still unprepared for the unpredictability of life? With Jake beside her, every possibility unfurled like one of her homemade creations, intricate and unknown. Would she rise above yet again, or would it sweep her away? The unexpected chaos clawed at Sarah's insides, but instead of recoiling, she took a measured breath, grounding herself amid the tumult. Each heartbeat echoed a mix of fear and anticipation, driving her to confront the escalating disorder head-on. No longer just a creator of jewelry, she was building something much deeper, a connection to the world around her, an interwoven web of hope and resilience. "Let's check on that stall over there," she said, her voice barely audible above the commotion. She gestured toward the newly fallen decor. Jake followed her lead, the dynamics between them shifting once again. Suddenly, they weren't just fellow exhibitors. They were soldiers against chaos, sharing a mission fueled by adrenaline. As they approached, Sarah noticed a young mother among the gathered crowd, her face twisted in worry. The woman cradled a baby in one arm while struggling to hold back tears with the other. A wave of empathy crashed over Sarah. This was more than a market mishap. This was someone's livelihood, perhaps even their survival. "Excuse me," Sarah said, stepping closer, Is there anything we can do to help? The woman looked up, surprise washing over her features, mixed with desperation. I don't know. My baby needs some supplies that I lost in the mess. I don't know what to do. A knot twisted in Sarah's stomach. She searched for the right words. This moment mattered. It could solidify her growth, her commitment to others' well-being. Let's figure this out together, Sarah replied, her voice deliberate and patient. We can help you find what you need. Glib thoughts of her booth and her half-finished pieces receded in the background. Something deeper pulled at her senses. What if she could help not just by shoulder-deep cleaning, but by being a resource for the young mother? Let's see if we might gather some items for you. My jewelry is just one part of who I am, she thought. Jake, Sarah called. Urgency colored her tone. I need your eye. Can you help gather some items from nearby? Jake nodded thoughtfully, clearly assessing the different sections of the fair. As he walked off to gather resources, Sarah turned her attention back to the mother, who looked lost and overwhelmed. Can you tell me specifically what you need? Sarah asked gently. The mother hesitated, her face a mask of worry, but slowly began to explain her situation. She needed baby formula, diapers, and other essentials, lost in the frenzy a stark reminder of how fragile circumstances could be. As they spoke, Sarah felt a spark ignite within her spirit. It wasn't just about salvaging material possessions. It was about rallying support, about connection. The notion that she could be instrumental in alleviating another's distress filled her with purpose. She hadn't just rediscovered a part of herself, she was now branching out toward offering support to others in significant ways. The local grocery store is just a few blocks away, Sarah said suddenly, her confidence growing. Let's coordinate the pickup. I can run, and if you give me a list, I'll bring back everything as fast as I can. The young mother stared at her in disbelief, her tear-stained cheeks showing a flicker of hope. You would do that for me? Of course, Sarah reassured her, feeling a deeper conviction fill her heart. This was her moment to stand tall, to weave her talents not just into jewelry, but into heartening another person's life. As she prepared to dash through the crowd to the nearest store, she felt a rush of adrenaline surge, realizing this was the turning point she never anticipated. This was more than resilience. This was transformational for both of them. In that moment of clarity, Jake returned carrying a small bag, his admiration evident in his gaze. I can't believe you're doing this, he remarked, his voice tinged with respect. Sarah caught his eye and saw something illuminating. We can impact one another's lives, can't we? She replied, feeling a renewed sense of purpose surging through her veins. But before she could take a step toward her task, another terrible crash rang from the opposite end of the fair. A pervasive tension hung in the air, like the eerie calm before a storm. Sarah's heart raced. Was she ready to face yet another unforeseen challenge? Would she find the strength to keep moving forward, even when her path seemed impossibly tangled? With a deep breath, she stole a glance at Jake, and they both understood they would have to face that new wave together. Instinct kicked in as Sarah's mind raced to process the looming chaos. The crash resonated through her, a visceral reminder that the path ahead wouldn't be easy. Yet, amidst the fear, another feeling blossomed: determination. She had just tasted the sweet nectar of purpose, and she wouldn't easily let it slip away. Jake, she said urgently, let's go check that out. There was no time to waste. Each second counted, and she could feel the weight of responsibility as both the young mother and the urgency of the scene gripped her heart. They maneuvered through the crowd, gaining ground on the source of the noise. Disheveled vendors were attempting to reconstruct an area where displays had toppled. However, the sound of distressed voices shattered any semblance of calm. Caught in the chaos, Sarah felt a compelling urge to act, to forge a new identity in the face of adversity. What do you think happened? Jake questioned, his brow furrowed in concern. It doesn't matter right now. Let's see who needs help. As they approached the crowd, Sarah could pick out 3 of her fellow exhibitors huddled together, their expressions painted with both surprise and frustration. The atmosphere buzzed with raw energy, a whirlwind of emotions that mirrored her own internal battle. A middle-aged gentleman was glaring at a broken display, muttering about lost income and the impact on his family. Sarah recognized the name on the stand. He was well known for his bespoke crafts, It hit her that this wasn't just a stall, it was someone's passion. Their livelihood laid bare in the aftermath of an unexpected surge. "Hey," she called out, determination coloring her tone. "Is there anything we can do to help?" The man looked up, eyes flickering from one face to the other. Even in hardship, a hint of gratitude softened his brow. "I've got to salvage this before the crowd disperses. It's all I have." Suddenly Sarah wasn't just an onlooker. She was an integral part of the fabric of this narrative unfolding around her. "Let's work together," she suggested, a new level of confidence pushing through the veil of doubt. "We can help you set things right." Jake nodded and started helping others move debris away from the battered stall. Sarah's adrenaline propelled her forward, stimulating her to coordinate with the others to restore order in whatever way possible. "I'll take this side," she pointed, collecting smaller pieces of the display. "Who's with me?" Surprisingly, several nearby exhibitors stepped forward, joining her in the effort. For every hand that joined, Sarah felt an invigorating surge of community spirit emerging, a stark contrast to the chaos moments before. The collective movement was almost transformative. As the group worked, silence filled spaces that had been rife with panic. Focus was redirected to the determination in their actions, rather than the fear of loss. Each item they returned to its rightful place was a small victory, igniting sparks of hope and solidarity amongst them. In this new role, Sarah found herself evolving. Every scrap of decorated wood returned to the tent became not just a piece of art but a symbol of resilience. A hidden skill began to uncover itself within her, a knack for leadership that had hardly been acknowledged. As the chaos began to settle, her face flushed with a blend of exertion and exhilaration. She turned to Jake, who was busy tying off a loose banner. We're actually doing this." "It looks that way," he replied, a grin creeping onto his face. But in the middle of their triumph, a shadow passed over Sarah's energy. A missed call pinged on her phone, snapping her back to reality. She couldn't ignore the nagging sensation that something urgent was lurking beyond the whirlwind of the moment. She glanced at the screen, her breath hitching slightly. The message from the young mother flickered urgently, fueled by a need just as crucial as the one she had experienced moments before. With renewed anxiety, Sarah turned to Jake. "I'll be right back. There's something I need to address." As she rushed off, she could feel the tangled web of responsibilities settling heavily on her shoulders once more. How would she reconcile her commitment to this unexpected camaraderie and the pressing demands that awaited? Would her newfound identity hold under the raised stakes, or would the weight of the world pull her back into uncertainty? As Sarah rushed through the fairground, weaving past booths and eager visitors, she could feel her pulse quickening with both urgency and trepidation. The young mother's need echoed in her mind, a reminder that her journey was both personal and communal. She had taken the first steps into a new chapter, one that required her to balance her emerging identity with the practicalities of life outside her booth. Arriving at her jewelry stand, Sarah quickly checked her phone. The notification from the mother was a desperate plea. "I need those supplies. Can you help me? I can't do this alone." The weight of that message pierced through her, igniting her determination once more. This moment was a turning point. It wasn't just about selling jewelry or reclaiming her past. It was about transcending her story into something that uplifted others as well. Pausing her bustling thoughts, she took a breath and faced Jake, who had been assisting the vendor during the commotion. "I need to run to the store for some supplies the young mother requires," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Will you keep an eye on my booth?" "Of course. Go. You've got this," Jake encouraged, his expression genuinely supportive. In that moment, Sarah felt a rush of gratitude toward him, and the bonds she was forging all this effort was proving that vulnerability could lead to unparalleled strength. Taking off toward the grocery store, Sarah's thoughts raced. She had once been paralyzed by the fear of scrutiny, the weight of judgment from people like Emily, and even her own insecurities. But now, she was driven by purpose, by the desire to be someone who could help others even in the smallest of ways. At the store, she dashed through the aisles, focused and efficient. Each item selected felt like a testament to her growth. Diaper packs, formula, wipes, the essentials that would restore some sense of normalcy to the young mother's day. With each item placed in her basket, Sarah's heart swelled. She was not just a struggling single mom. She was a force of compassion, a conduit for change. As she exited the store, arms laden with supplies, a wave of content washed over her. Sarah knew she wasn't just overcoming her struggles. She was redefining her legacy. Life was more than her jewelry, it was about how she chose to impact the world around her. Upon returning to the fair, she was greeted by the sight of community in action. Vendors had teamed up to reconstruct the fallen displays around her. Encouraged by their solidarity, Sarah approached the young mother, her heart racing as she extended the bag of supplies. "I got everything you need. Let's take care of this." The woman's eyes filled with tears as she clutched the items. "You really did this? For me?" "Yes," Sarah replied, her heart full. "Let's work together on this." In that precious moment, as they scheduled the next steps for the mother's needs, Sarah felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had confronted her fears of judgment, embraced her strengths, and transformed them into actions for others. This was a true testament that she had indeed turned a corner. The rest of the day unfolded into a celebration of connection and mutual support. As Sarah continued to engage with other vendors and customers alike, she found herself being recognized not just for her artistry, but as someone emboldened by her journey. The chains of shame had evaporated, replaced by a newfound authenticity. When the day finally came to an end, Sarah stood before her booth, reflecting on the day's events. The applause from customers who appreciated her work, the natural friendships forged in the face of adversity, all weaved together to form a multifaceted identity that was vibrant, courageous, and undeniably hers. As the sun dipped below the horizon, toning the sky with soft hues, the echoes of laughter and conversation harmonized into a beautiful symphony. Sarah felt solid confidence radiating from her core. No longer would she be tethered by the perceptions of others. Shoes still worn but her spirit soaring, she closed her booth with a smile. All that she had achieved, her artistry, her resolve, her courage, had crafted a pathway to personal fulfillment. She was not just Sarah, the struggling mother. She was Sarah, a creator, a giver, and a woman who conquered her fears. With her heart swelling with pride and satisfaction, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Her journey was far from over. Life had presented her with an arsenal of opportunities to explore. She had demonstrated that vulnerability, when woven into the fabric of persistence, bred connection and strength. Indeed, she had achieved the extraordinary, transforming her purpose from survival into thriving. Now, embrace your own journey and share this story. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss out on the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support the movement of personal growth. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending, your insights matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to uplift others through genuine storytelling.